to spend too much time going over the last few paragraphs of the residential listing agreement because, for the most part, this information has stayed the same. They have just kind of, again, created it more into the grids so you can have a better quick glance at it. You would still want to read any corresponding paragraphs that kind of go into more detail about what these grid sections are meaning and referring to. But um, paragraph F1 is simply default verbiage stating that the seller is going to instruct the agent to present all offers once they're received as soon as practical. Meaning, if it comes in at 1 o'clock in the morning, they don't necessarily expect the agent to send it at 1:01. It's when it's as soon as it's practical, unless, again, they're going to check the boxes here stating that, no, I already know that I'm going to want all the offers presented to me, the following Wednesday after we, go on market, or X amount of days after we're on market. That is what F1 is covering. F2 is going to cover that by default, the seller is going to instruct the agent not to present buyer letters. This was a big thing. I do still see a lot of buyer letters come through. So agents, make sure you understand that by default, you are not to present buyer letters unless you check the box there that states that the seller would like buyer letters presented to them. You really should go into the why buyer letters are not ideal, or why the default verbiage is saying that they will not present buyer letters. There's a lot of information in there that could be swaying the acceptance of the offer that is a protected class or characteristic, and it would be deemed unlawful. And obviously, we want to avoid lawsuits. So make sure, again, you and the seller understand why the default verbiage is that no buyer letters would be presented, and then you actually follow through with that. So when you do receive an offer, if it does have it, verify what your residential listing agreement stated, and then advise that you're not going to be presenting that buyer letter. F3, it's investigation reports. Is the seller going to order and pay for any reports upfront? Typically, as a TC, once I receive that listing agreement, I am going to pre-open escrow and order the NHD. So at least there's two of those reports that are ordered and taken care of right up front. Not every TC processes files the same way, so I don't know if yours does or doesn't, but that's just how I process mine. So you would want to make sure those two boxes are at least checked. HOA documents, again, those are something that typically we see them ordered up front because they can take a while to receive, or you can pay a pretty penny to have a rush order once you get into escrow. So just make sure you go through each of these with your client, check the boxes that you want to have checked, and then I would recommend letting your TC know, even though, yes, they will probably be reviewing this with a fine-tooth comb, making sure that they've gotten everything, but you also just want to do your due diligence and professional courtesy that if you're, saying, oh, we're going to order the pool inspection, or we're going to order a septic inspection up front, so be prepared for that. Just letting them know that heads up front is a professional courtesy. Paragraph G is where we're talking about who has the right to ownership and title. That whoever is signing this listing agreement is stating that they are the owner of the property, that there's no other persons or entities who have title to the property, and that the seller has the authority to execute the agreement and the sale of the property, with no exceptions. And if there happens to be an exception, that's where you would put it, is line G. Line H, it's just checking the box. Again, it's a conversation you're having with your seller of, are you going to need to have a contingency that if you receive an offer, we need to include a contingency that you need to find or close or both on a replacement property. Section J, again, read the paragraphs, but it's two of the opt-outs that may or may not be applicable for your seller. It's stating that by default, the seller is agreeing to allow for the agent to install a lockbox or a key box, key safe, and same thing with the sign, that by default, the seller is agreeing to allow the agent to install a sign. I have been involved with listings where it's in an HOA and the HOA does not allow signs. So you would want to check that box if it were applicable. Always be careful with Section K, the additional terms. Anything you're modifying to one of these agreements, you're essentially practicing law. So you want to make sure that your verbiage is correct, that it's valid, that it would hold up in court if this file, for whatever reason, went to court. As always, read everything. Make sure you understand everything. Make sure your client understands what they're signing before they sign it, and you get any and all questions out of the way before you have this ratified agreement. That is all I'm going to cover for the residential listing agreement. I hope it was helpful in understanding the changes that were made within the residential listing agreement itself. I am also going to go over the open house and property visitor sign-in sheet that in a separate video that doesn't necessarily go hand in hand with the residential listing agreement, but you'll probably be seeing them if you get a listing.